The Icy Betrayal, how Jesse James was betrayed and put on display. Jesse James. The name alone once sent chills down the spines of bankers, sheriffs, and anyone foolish enough to stand in his way. To some, he was a cold-blooded killer. To others, he was America's own Robin Hood, robbing the rich railroads that crushed farmers after the Civil War. But what most people don't know is how his story ended. Not in a gunfight, not on horseback, but face down on his living room floor, killed by betrayal, and later turned into a literal spectacle on ice. By the spring of 1882, Jesse James was tired. He'd spent nearly 2 decades living on the run, robbing trains, hiding in caves, using fake names, always one step ahead of the law. He'd tried to go straight, living quietly with his wife Z and their children in St. Joseph, Missouri, under the alias Thomas Howard. But even legends can't outrun their reputation forever. Inside his own gang, 2 brothers, Robert and Charles Ford, had already made a secret deal with Missouri's governor. The reward? $10,000 and a full pardon. On the morning of April 3, 1882, Jesse sat down for breakfast with the Fords. They chatted casually, like old friends. Afterward, Jesse noticed a dusty picture frame hanging crooked on the wall. Being the kind of man who couldn't stand disorder, he stood on a chair to straighten it. That simple act sealed his fate. As Jesse turned his back, Robert Ford raised his revolver, a .44 caliber Smith & Wesson, and fired a single shot into the back of Jesse's head. America's most infamous outlaw fell forward, dead before he hit the floor. He was only 34. Now you'd think the story would end there, but it didn't. In fact, this is where it got even stranger. Word spread like wildfire. Crowds gathered at the James home within hours. Men and women fought for a glimpse of the fallen outlaw. The body was carried to a local undertaker, H.O. Sidenfaden, who placed Jesse's corpse on a block of ice in the mortuary window so townsfolk could come see the infamous bandit with their own eyes. Yes, Jesse James, once the most wanted man in America, was literally put on ice for public display. For a small fee, people lined up around the block just to gawk at his lifeless body. They wanted proof that the legend was truly gone. Some clipped locks of his hair. Others dipped cloths in his blood as souvenirs. Even in death, Jesse was still making people rich. And if you're still here, hit that like and subscribe, a Yahweh Stories Horror. Because stories like this remind us that history's wildest endings are sometimes colder than any bullet. But here's the thing, not everyone believed Jesse was really dead. Rumors spread that the man on display was a double, that Jesse faked his death with the Fords' help and disappeared into the West. Newspapers published eyewitness sightings of him for decades afterward. Conspiracy or not, one fact remains undeniable. The man known as Jesse James was buried in Kearney, Missouri, under a tombstone that reads, "Murdered by a traitor and coward whose name is not worthy to appear here." That traitor and coward, of course, was Robert Ford, the man who shot Jesse in the back for fame and reward money. And justice, in its own brutal way, came full circle. 10 years later, in 1892, Robert Ford himself was gunned down in a Colorado saloon by another man looking to make a name for himself. The bullet that killed Ford was said to be poetic revenge, fired by someone who thought he was avenging the outlaw's ghost. Today, the legend of Jesse James still rides on in songs, books, and films. The romantic outlaw betrayed not by the law but by a friend. His life was a storm of violence, rebellion, and fame. But his death, preserved on ice and paraded before the public, showed something even colder: how quickly loyalty melts in the heat of greed. So next time you hear his name, remember this. Jesse James didn't die in a gunfight. He died fixing a picture frame, trusting the wrong man. And in the end, the world didn't mourn him. It paid admission to see him. Like and subscribe, a Yahweh Stories 404, because history's most haunting tales aren't buried in the past. They're frozen in time.